Hi, this is Steve Ginsberg. Thanks for joining this webinar. We're going to be discussing what to do when you are first pulled over. What to do once you notice that you're being pulled over. So, tip 1, pull over promptly and safely. Tip 2, wait until the officer comes to you. You might notice a trend that we're seeing here. Tip 3, ask if you can remove your seatbelt. Now, why are we doing that? This way, the officer knows you were wearing your seatbelt, and that's just one less ticket you have to worry about. Tip 4, keep both hands on the wheel while waiting for the officer. And once again, this is a trend. The idea is you want your officer to feel safe and comfortable. That's much better for the officer, and it's much better for you. It avoids all kinds of problems. Tip 5, this is while we're having a discussion with the police officer. Be polite. Be brief, say as little as possible, but without being disrespectful. Answer the questions, but answer them short, and don't offer any additional information other than to answer the question. Tip 6, if you are absolutely convinced that you have any valid excuse or information that you think is going to help you avoid a ticket, the one and only time to say something is right when you're speaking to the officer in your initial conversation. If he's going to change his mind, that's the one time. Once he goes back to his car, it's a done deal. He's going to write your ticket and you're going to have a ticket. Tip 7, anytime you're speaking to the officer at your traffic stop, don't be confrontational or snarky. These arguments and temper tantrums that sometimes people have, they never help, and they actually can hurt. Tip 8, if you have kids in the car, make sure they keep their seatbelts buckled. I know of a situation more than once where after a few minutes of waiting by the side of the road, the kids got out of their seatbelt, and look at that, they just got tickets. 3 points per kid out of the seatbelt, and it can happen. Now we're going to talk about once you have the ticket. What do you do now? First of all, after the officer has given you the ticket, this might seem obvious, but don't leave until they indicate that they are done. We know of situations where people got into additional trouble, sometimes worse trouble, because the officer wasn't finished with them and they left. Tip 10, and this is very important, determine if your ticket is a criminal matter or traffic violation. How you respond to it and what you're going to need to do, and how important it is to get a lawyer, and many other things are going to be based on this one determination that you have to make. Tip 11, pay careful attention to the date on the bottom of your ticket. You need to respond to your ticket by a certain date. Know that date and make sure you get your answer in before that date. At the same time, sometimes if you respond too quickly, the courts may not even have your ticket. They don't always get their tickets right away from the officers. And you do have a risk that a ticket could get lost in the court clerk's office, and that's not something that you want either. So you usually want to wait at least a week, but get it in before the date on the bottom of the ticket. Tip 12, some tickets are not worth fighting. There are minor violations that are more cost effective to just plead guilty and pay the fine. And you should figure that out at the beginning as well, whether this is one of those tickets. Tip 13, if your ticket was for an equipment violation, get the necessary repairs, whether it's getting a light fixed or whatever else it might have been. Get that done within the first 24 hours if possible and have a receipt. It might mean a dismissal of the ticket, or at the very least it should help with other tickets that you've received that day. Tip 14, pleading not guilty and handling it yourself. Many people do this. In some cases you may be just fine handling it yourself. Sometimes it might not be a good idea. But a word to the wise. Sometimes people who are representing themselves in court, they don't do this that much, and they may inadvertently damage their case by making uninformed or strategically poor decisions. I've seen this happen many times. You want to be really careful about that. The good news, though, is that even if you have started the case by proceeding on your own, it is never too late to receive professional legal counsel, and in many cases, an attorney that you retain even late in the game may still be able to help you very significantly. Now we're going to talk about the advantages of hiring an attorney. And I just want to point out that the rest of this presentation is going to be specifically focused on New York State tickets. That's where my practice is located. If you have an out-of-state ticket, you should speak with a local attorney. First advantage, it saves time. In most cases, in many cases, you won't have to come to court. Your attorney will be able to do that for you, and you'll have that time free to do other things. Second advantage is you can be saving money over the long haul, whether it's because of fewer points, sometimes no points. You can reduce possible fines and assessments by the DMV. There can be a very significant savings in your auto insurance and many other things. Third advantage is save headaches. With an attorney handling the matter, that's one very big thing that's off your plate. You just don't have to worry about it, and you can let your attorney do the worrying. Now we're going to talk about 7 ways that you can help your attorney help you. Tip number 1, don't throw out your ticket. I've seen this happen way too many times. There's a lot of very important information on that ticket that your attorney can use to your benefit. Make sure that you have a copy available, even if you handed it in to the clerk. Tip 2, tell your lawyer everything. Don't hold back. Everything is confidential. Make sure your attorney has all of the facts, all of the relevant information, and that includes if there's any issues with your license, any previous convictions. Your lawyer has to know the whole story in order to help you with your circumstances. Tip 3, make sure your attorney can communicate with you promptly. Make sure that you have your current contact information, and if they call you, please call them back. There could be very important, timely, and sensitive issues that have to be discussed, and there could be some serious consequences if your attorney can't reach you. If you're going to be away on vacation or not available for some reason, please make sure to tell your attorney in advance and have a contingency plan in place for what to do if there is a need to contact someone. Tip 4, if anything relevant to the ticket or your case or your license shows up in the mail from the police, from the courts, or from the DMV, please inform your lawyer immediately. Do not assume that your lawyer already knows about it. Tip 5, let your attorney handle the matter. Your attorney is being paid partly to make the strategy for how to best handle the case and how to best benefit you in your situation. Tip 6, follow your lawyer's advice, whether it means coming to court, not coming to court, or other things that your lawyer tells you to do. You should follow your lawyer's advice. Tip 7, this is one of the most important things. Pay your fines promptly. There are serious consequences for not paying your fine. And I have seen really, really great deals, very beneficial results get squandered and lost because a fine was not paid when it was supposed to be. Now we're going to talk about some things to do after you resolve your ticket. Tip 1, take a defensive driver course. They're very easy to take, they're inexpensive, and there are many benefits for you. Tip 2, make sure you have a working hands-free device for your cell phone. Especially today, everybody uses their cell phone every day. You want to have a way to use your cell phone without risking a very big 5-point ticket, which is what a cell phone ticket is in New York State. Tip 3, maintain your car. You can avoid a lot of tickets, and you can avoid your car being a magnet for officers. If your lights are working properly, your muffler is working, you don't have you keep your license plate clear of mud and dirt and snow and other obstacles. Keep your car working properly. Tip 4, have all the relevant documentation in the car. Your registration, your insurance cards, of course you should have your driver's license with you. Have them in the car, have them in an easy spot, maybe your glove compartment or somewhere else. Know where it is and make sure you can reach it. Now, a little bit about camera and parking tickets. First, if you receive a ticket in the mail from a special camera for running a red light or speeding, we're seeing this a lot in New York City and in some places of Nassau County, my recommendation is to pay the ticket. These convictions do not appear on your driving record. There are no points. There really are no consequences other than the one-time fine. Tip 2, parking tickets. My advice again is to pay these tickets. I have found that they are not cost-effective to fight. My name again is Steve Ginsberg, and my office is located in Rockland County. You can call me at 845-547-2500. I'll be happy to discuss your ticket with no obligations whatsoever and no charge to review your ticket. Now, let's take a look at some questions that we've been getting during this webinar. Here's a question from Rich. How do I know if my ticket is a traffic ticket or a criminal matter? Something I mentioned before. In most criminal tickets, there will be a small 4-letter designation in a parentheses, MISD. That's short for misdemeanor. If it says that, you know that this is a criminal ticket, and it is very important that you speak to a lawyer right away so that you handle it right and that your rights will be best protected. There are other things that you can just know if you get a ticket for reckless driving, certainly for DWI, and for various other things. But look for that 4-letter MISD. If you're not sure, by the way, you can always fax or email me your ticket, and I'll be happy to take a look at that for you for no charge. And we can discuss it, and I can tell you what exactly you have. Okay, here's a question from Don. If I have a phone in a mounted phone holder and put it on speaker, what will enable me to avoid a ticket for? Will that enable me to avoid a ticket for driving while speaking on a cell phone? The answer basically is yes. You still want to be careful if it's sticking out of the dashboard and it looks like you're holding it from a distance. A police officer might think that you were holding it in your hand. You want to be careful about that. But for the most part, if you're not holding it and it's on speaker, you will be protected from getting a cell phone ticket, and that's very important. These tickets have become very serious in the last few years. Okay, here's a question from Nancy. Why did I get 2 points when a friend had the same ticket and received none? Another very good question. Ideally, every ticket would be treated the same everywhere. But in the real world, it just doesn't work that way. New York State is a large state. There are many, many different courts and many different judges. Some courts have different judges who handle things different ways. You can never be certain that what happened to one person is going to happen to you, even if you got the exact same ticket. That's just a fact. In addition, even if you are in the same court with the same judge, even the same court session, you can have 2 different people get 2 different results. And that's because some courts take a particular interest in your driving record. And if somebody with a very bad driving record, they're going to be holding that against them, and they may not get as good a deal as somebody else with a clean driving record. There are many other factors as well, but that's something to keep in mind. All right, here's a question from Bill. I heard that fighting tickets in New York City is different than the rest of the state. Yes, that's true. A very significant difference. Around most of the state, if you get a ticket for a traffic violation, in most cases you're able to enter into a plea negotiation where we can work out a reduced charge, and each situation is different, but the basic idea is that we'll plead guilty to something with fewer points, maybe with no points, maybe fewer tickets, maybe 1 ticket to cover several. There's a lot of different possibilities. And then they'll dismiss the more serious ticket. None of this applies in New York City. In New York City, every ticket goes to a hearing. It's win or lose. So obviously that changes the way we as attorneys have to handle it, and it changes what the end result possibilities are. And that's something that you should discuss with your lawyer. Okay, here's a question from Ronnie. I received a ticket out of state, and this particular one was New Jersey. Will those points show up on my license? Another really good question. I get this question a lot. The short answer is no. Your points will not appear on your New York State record. The DMV website makes that very clear. Sometimes people don't believe me. New York State does not record convictions for traffic violations that you get in other states. However, on a case-by-case basis, sometimes you might want to consider pleading not guilty and either hiring a lawyer or going down yourself. And that may be situations where you have enough convictions, or it's a serious enough conviction that you might get a consequence for your driving ability in that state. There may be other issues involved if it's a very serious charge. But the basic rule, if you have an ordinary violation in another state, is that you can just plead guilty and pay the fine, and you will not have a consequence in New York State if you are a New York State resident, and you will not have any adverse consequences in most cases on your insurance either. Just as a parenthetical, New York State has a compact with both the Canadian provinces of Ontario and Quebec, so if you've got tickets there, none of this applies. You actually should try to deal with those fully and vigorously, because those convictions would appear on your New York State license, oddly enough. Okay, here's somebody wants to know whether I can give a few examples of having saved somebody's license or saved them a lot of money. Yeah, there's many different ways that's happened. I'll give you a few examples. We've had a couple of situations where somebody driving a lot of people, it's usually a van with a lot of kids, there could be 10 to 12 kids in the car. If nobody was wearing their seatbelts, 3 points per kid, it doesn't take long to add up to 11 points, particularly when you consider that they usually got pulled over for speeding, so that was maybe 4 or 6 points right there, and then a few kids out of seatbelts. We could be talking about upwards of 20 points. And we've been able to, almost without exception, save their license. We also have situations where there's very high speed, somebody going 90 or above, and being able to save their license there is something that we've done many times. I've even had a couple of situations with exceptionally high speeds where we're able to keep someone from going to jail. Another thing that's come up a number of times with young drivers, 16 or 17-year-olds, the first 6 months, New York State places every new driver on probation. Many different kinds of moving violations can result in a suspension for 60 days or more. So I've had that quite a number of times as well, where something as relatively minor as not stopping all the way at a stop sign, which could result in a suspension, or even more difficult would be if there are several tickets during that initial 6-month probationary period. Okay. Well, if we have any other questions, we're out of time now, but please feel free to send me a fax, an email. You can call me. My number is on your screen. It's 845-547-2500, and I'll be happy to answer your questions. Any questions you have about your tickets, I will answer. And you can send me your ticket, you can fax it, you can email it, and we'll certainly discuss it at no obligation whatsoever. And anyway, my number is on your screen. You can also email me, steve@ginsberglegal.net, and I look forward to speaking to you. Thank you very much.